quick show of hands. Who knows what JSON is? All right, we have like 1/3, right? Good. If anyone has read a book by Jerome K. Jerome, Three Men and a Boat, I think it's called, and a dog, there's like in one point, he would just say, like this guy was really not wanting to do something, and everyone asked him to do like a piano thing magic. So he's like, okay, so those who were not born in London, leave. Those who do not like classical music, leave. Those who like jazz, leave, and etc. And kept shrinking the audience until there was no one. And that was a good way to do it.
So good at music too.
I'm sorry? I haven't started yet, don't worry. I'm just chit-chatting. Well, I mean, sure.
Earlier when you had the chart of the weather or something?
Yeah.
But you said you got that information. Did you get it automatically or you had to code that graph?
Sadly, well, the graph is basically this.
Not the, sorry, I
This.
the graph, the table with all the...
The table at this point had to be manually converted.
Wow, this. Yeah.
This. But
So you copied the numbers?
not by one. I mean, I semi-automated. But yes, we do need those who run bots. Do we have anyone who runs bots here? Okay, excellent. 2, 3. Wow, perfect. You're my data people. Go to data people. Yes. So please, we need more data. The data has to be CC0, public domain only at this point. Which means if it's good enough for Wikidata, you can put it here. But if it's not, don't put it here just yet. So for example, anything created by US government, well, not everything, but most of the things created by federal US government is public domain. So you can easily copy it without any concerns. You should still give a proper sourcing so that you can actually find the source of the data and you can see it. All right, so very first thing. So first we're gonna go into slightly more technical details, then we jump out, then probably back in, then out, so don't worry. And please, this is more of a discussion session. So if you have any kind of questions, feel free to raise your hand, stop right there, we'll discuss it. We are a small enough group, so it's perfect. All right? So let's first go to a simpler example. So all the data for, I think it's too loud, right? This is good? Better? All the data that you can store in Wikipedia at the moment, all the data sets data, is only available, can only be stored on commons in a data namespace. Has to be in a data namespace. The moment you put data there, it's available everywhere on all the other wikis. And the data at this point can be either a table, has to end with a .tab, or it's a map, which ends with a .map. Those who know GeoJSON, anyone knows GeoJSON? I've heard of GeoJSON, no? KML, GPX, all those strange formats for mappy stuff. Well, we can store that too. But as long as it's in GeoJSON format, like converted to GeoJSON. So let's take a sample. There's quite a few samples now. Let's see. Okay, so let's start with this very simple example of a table with 4 columns. Sure. It's stored in a very scary form at this point. In a JSON format. It has all the fields like license and description, schema, which describes each one of those fields, and the data itself right here. All this is data. So for example, for the table we just saw, again, this is the table. There's ID of the column, type, and some localized string, something in like in whatever language you want. Plus, there's again strings, numbers, booleans, localized strings. See, it says localized right there. The way it works is that localized is actually a special being. You can put all the languages in that column, and you can have multiple of those. So if we look at the way it's stored, there is a plums, 32, false, and then all the different languages. In French, in Greek, Espanol. So if we actually look at this data and say use lang or switch your language to Spanish, then you see that it automatically translated all these strings if it's available. Otherwise, it just jumps back to English or whatever is available. What does that give us? Why is this like very useful and important? Well, let's take a look at one use case, which some of you, how many people here edit templates? Okay, good. So as I said before, if you only think that templates or anything should be created in English only, please leave the room. I created this little thing called, MediaWiki module TNT. It could blow up, that's why I called it TNT. It's a very simple Lua module that allows you to write a very simple thing like this. I mean, it's not very complicated, really. What this says is, right here, insert a localized version of my string. I don't know what the string is. Just right here, put the string in a localized format. This way, if you actually look at the this one of my templates, it just creates the lines. Right here, it shows the data in English with a link. But if you switch to, I don't know, Hebrew, then that same link is shown in Hebrew. But the thing is, the template itself is identical. And the way it works is if you go to edit source of this template, at the very bottom, right here, I'll just kind of move things around. At the very bottom, instead of having the click here to edit this data, and then you put this data as like, I don't know, data, something like this. Instead of having this kind of text, I do this kind of text, which might look scarier, but what it does is that it uses this data set, this table, to pull out a source table parameter and give it a parameter. So if we go here and look at this data set, uncommons, sorry, give me one sec. Oops. If this is the message table, this is the source table, this is the text you see, and you can see that it's in 7 different languages. That's how it automatically gets translated. So right now, if you want to localize this lines graph that we just saw, all you have to do is come here, click on edit, scroll down to the message that you want to change, and say, okay, I want to write it in, I don't know, French. And then you write it in French. And just adding this one line will automatically translate all the messages, all the templates that use the TNT module with this key and this file. Questions or very confused? If I'm digging too deep into technicalities, you tell me and I'll kind of resurface.
You're saying it automatically translates that? Why doesn't it just produce it multiple languages to begin with?
Well, we still want a human to write that text. The automatic portion is the fact that human being, at this point, when humans copy this template, let's say, sorry, not this template.
Just saying it produces a new page that can be then fully
Right.
translated text.
Right. So let's say someone in, I don't know, Ukrainian wiki really likes this template. It used to be that basically what they had to do was go to edit source, copy this thing, select it, copy, then go to uk.wikipedia.org. There it is. Create source, paste it here, and now go through a very painstaking process of finding all the instances where English text was used and replace it with Ukrainian text. Now, because of the TNT, they can just copy paste it as is without a single change. And that's it. But then if they want to localize it, they just need to go back to that table, the one that I just showed you, and add localization of just that one string here. And then everywhere Ukrainian is used, by the way, it could be in more than one location, like Commons, for example, is multilingual. On Commons, depending on your user language, you'll see it in whatever language you want. Also, if you insert a template in English, but your user interface language is set to Ukrainian, you will also, in Visual Editor, see the strings as in Ukrainian. So it benefits everyone who uses that template, regardless of their language. Yeah?
So if you have a template on one language Wikipedia and you want to copy it over, say you've now copied it over, now whatever topic the template is on, something new happens and you need a new field. That template isn't hosted in a common space. Would I have to then go to every single language Wikipedia and change the coding to have something new?
That's a great question. And I wish we had a system with a template in one location and then use it from everywhere. I wish. I have been wishing this for the past 11 years, ever since I started volunteering for Wikipedia. Not there yet. We just had a dev summit in San Francisco, and this issue was discussed yet again. I think it comes up at every dev summit. It is one of the most requested features. Not happening just yet. Too complicated technologically. But this is the next best thing, which is because you no longer need to modify each different template. What I do now is I put this big disclaimer at the very top. Says do not, well, not, sorry. Let's go to lines. At the very top of every one of those templates that I create, I put this text. Attention, this code is maintained at only MediaWiki.org. Don't change it anywhere else. That instructs everyone, I hope, to not change it and go to MediaWiki.org for any kind of additional fields. Afterwards, and now I'm jumping to the second portion. You see, every template also has this big thing, this gray big thing, which is known as template data. Everyone knows what it is, yeah? Okay, so this is where the parameters for a template are described. And we don't want to maintain those either because they are usually inside the documentation page. And it's very hard to go language to language to update them because, I mean, it's a mess. So what do I do here? If we click on edit here and look at the documentation for this template, we don't have a network problem. This is the examples, all in English basically. But then you see that there is no template data, even though it should be here, but it's not. Instead, there is this just one string right here, which is again the usage of TNT module, that says the parameters for this template live in this data set. And where is that? Well, I actually put a helpful link here so it's more convenient. If we go there, it's another data table which just describes all the parameters. Again, one location, so a new parameter gets introduced, you add it to the template itself, and you add it here, and you're done. And then people can localize it at their pace, at their own pace. One very important thing here, though, to note is that the copying is still not automated. And this is what a friend of mine is actually working on as a bot operator to automate the copying. Because now templates are identical. You no longer need very complicated heuristics to figure out if templates should be copied or how it has been modified, whatever. You can say, from now on, this lines template, and it will have like a big thing at the top that says, this template is mirrored automatically. Which means don't touch it here, go to MediaWiki.org, for example. And then whenever it changes there, a bot will just automatically copy it to everywhere where it's listed in in the other languages thing.
So how involved? So I've never heard of this before. Maybe I'm.
Of course, I just added some of it. Yes.
Um, how are you going to be advertising this to the community? Because I'm thinking like this sounds like a lot of the template stuff is going to go in the direction of being hosted on Commons or another wiki, and I'm not sure the English Wikipedia, for instance, is going to like that idea of not having local control over some of those templates.
But see, that's the problem of the fundamental problem of
That's not
what
my
is a local community. I mean, local community, is it defined per language or should it be defined per group of applications? For example, many people would love to have identical template in English and French and in German, but all the RTL languages, Hebrew, Arabic, and a number of other ones, would prefer a very different approach to a template. Shouldn't we allow for creation of two fundamental templates at the top, and then whoever wants to use one uses that, whoever wants to use another uses that, maybe a third type. But my point is that there are always going to be multiple languages who will benefit from the same work, especially for the smaller communities. And if the cost of it is basically to host the template itself somewhere else, it's not that big of a deal. But I hope community will agree with me.
I agree with that personally. I don't know how receptive the English community will be, though. I know English community is kind of loaded, but the English Wikipedia community, in the sense of, for instance, if we move a template with tens of thousands of transclusions over to Commons, we no longer can template protect that and decide who gets to edit it, for instance.
That's a good point, and
And I don't
my suggestion for this is basically to fork it. In other words, you can still copy the template manually. No one's preventing you from doing that, right?
Okay.
So you can just say that, look, this template was copied from here. You can still copy protect it locally, and then you'll just do this bot work by hand. No one's preventing you from doing that. Questions? Yeah? Continuing? Okay. So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Are there any plans to introduce a table-based editor for the data tables on Commons?
I would love to have that. Do you want to work on it? I mean, here's the thing. Graphs has been my volunteer effort in its entirety. So it has this, really. I mean, table editor, a guy named the DJ. Anyone knows him? The DJ? No one? Dirk? He's from Netherlands, I think. He's one of the, I think, very, very technical people that Foundation probably would have loved to hire, but he never accepted. He just kept as volunteer. He actually created a gadget for table editing. And during the hackathon that just happened in San Francisco, in other words, 3 days ago, hopefully there will still more work will happen on that front, and it will become much easier. I'm really hoping for that data set support to be more. Okay, questions or ideas? Or, yeah.
Unrelated to the technical stuff, just about Commons. Has there been any, since this data namespace is pretty new, has there been any talk of what is the scope, what belongs there, what doesn't?
So initial conversation was started with just where do we store tables, or that map, which is also GeoJSON stuff. Where do we store that? One suggestion was Wikidata. It sounds natural, but it's actually not really. Because Wikidata is all about little facts. The height of Everest, the birthplace of Einstein. In other words, it's a subject property value type of Einstein, born in Zurich. This is much more of a blob of data, a big blob that has all sorts of information, all compiled into one table, and it's very different model, storage model from Wikidata's. Also, this data sets implicitly, in theory, allow for multiple different licensing. Right now, it's still on parity with Wikidata. It's only CC0, but no one actually prevents us from later saying, no, we're also going to allow CC BY, for example. It is a very complex question, actually, because Wikidata is permanently CC0. There's no questions about that. But for data sets, you get into very hairy things, especially with legal issues. Like, what if European Commission published a data set and they keep using ODBL, Open Database License? It is a very, very complicated question whether how to store it or if it should be stored or anything like that.
So my question was more like, what's in scope of what, ignore the licensing stuff. Like, if, for instance, I'm an economist, if I were to go to the database that the St. Louis Fed keeps of all their economic data, all public domain, because it's all government stuff, and just
That sounds fine.
copy it, that's all within
Yeah, definitely. Basically, the data that you store here is anything that might be useful for Wikipedia articles. How about that? Or even not Wikipedia, it could be Wikisource or Wikivoyage or whatever. That's like currently, if we look at all the stuff that has been created, mostly by myself, because I'm experimenting with it, there's fun stuff like, I don't know, from Bellingcat, Russian artillery strikes on Ukraine. Again, this is a point of view from Bellingcat source. Remember that. And there's like a list of all the attacks, according to them, as a table, which will eventually allow us, and then there's also maps, like this one. I mean, it's really crazy looking because it's raw data. But this is what this is. But then, thanks to this data, we can create, I think it's MediaWiki. Let me just double check if that's, we can create something like this. This is the same data but used on a map in terms of like locations of attacks, etc. This is just my personal experimentation project, if this is going to work or not. I have GDP data there, and the GDP, you might have seen my talk earlier, allows us to show something like this, where it's like a GDP map. And just view it or see the difference since a certain point and see, aha, North Dakota really built a pipeline and just basically almost doubled their GDP over a few years because of it. But again, the data is right there. This is the GDP data. So very simple use cases I see that already would greatly benefit everyone is, for example, this GDP data used for articles like list by US states by GDP. This wonderful long and article with, in my opinion, very low utility should be rewritten in terms of A, using more of these graphs, and B, deduplicating it. Because, for example, this number here is basically this number here, this long green line, as well as somewhere here, probably, in one of these columns. In other words, we have tons and tons of different usages and reusages of that same data. And if we look at all these languages, it's duplicated there as well. And because it's all duplicated, it's very hard to translate it. But it doesn't have to be that way. So that's what I'm hoping to move toward. Any more questions? We're really running out of time. So, anyone? Oh, it's all good. Clear and understandable. Thank you very much.